want to welcome everybody this week to our new feature webinar for Darwin Cloud. And this week's topic is Darwin Cloud Spotlights. So we're going to take a look at what spotlights are. Today is going to be really kind of more of an overview to take a look at some of the different spotlights that we have available and that you have available to be using for your brokerage, and kind of some of the different nuances behind some of those spotlights. So we'll kind of give that overview, show you some of the different spotlights that are out there. And then tomorrow, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, we have a follow-up Q&A that is specific for these new feature webinars. And so tomorrow's Q&A will really focus a little bit more on workshopping the Darwin Cloud Spotlights with you and helping you get those set up and start utilizing those within your brokerage. So that just kind of gives you an overview. If you've got questions that come up throughout this webinar today, just go ahead and type those in the chat. The nice part about having them in chat is I've got people that are helping me answer those questions today, so we might be able to answer it. If it's a question that they feel we need to bring up to the group, that's maybe something really valuable for everybody to hear, we'll go ahead and answer it during the webinar. Or otherwise, we'll probably have some time at the end for some questions. So just keep that in mind as we kind of roll through. Don't worry that we won't get to your questions in the chat. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start with our spotlights presentation. So the first thing that I just wanted to talk about a little bit is what are spotlights. So for those of you that don't know, spotlights are customizable dashboards. They can contain KPIs or financial data, and they are in the new Darwin Cloud. And they're available on the dashboard menu in Darwin, and it's under spotlights. And we have several different types of spotlights that we'll go through today here in just a moment. But they're really designed to try and surface real-time information and data so that you can take a look at maybe some trends that are going on in your brokerage and make some decisions potentially on those different trends or different numbers that you're seeing. So spotlights contain KPIs like listings taken, pendings written, closings, the normal kind of production KPIs that you think about, but it also contains a lot of the financial data, KPIs, budgets, and goals that you put forth, because Darwin Cloud has not only all of your transactional data in it, but also your accounting information. So we can give you both of those in our spotlights. And there are currently over 1,600 different widgets within the spotlights to choose from. So a widget, we'll go over that a little bit more in depth, but that's going to be any of the KPI numbers or maybe a graph. Those are all considered some type of widget within the spotlight. So a couple of reasons why we developed spotlights is, first of all, feedback always from our companies and clients that say, hey, sometimes I just want bottom line. I just want bottom line stuff, right? And so I want to be able to see things that maybe in a report I can see details, but I just want to see some instant, visibility and look at some of my key performance drivers, like how many pendings have we written. I want to see those things in real time so I can make quicker decisions and start acting on certain things and looking at trends. I also might want to have different views, right? For my as an owner, I want a different view than my managers maybe, or especially my agents, right? The agents, I only want them to see their information. And my managers, I only want them to see the offices and certain information that they're privy to. So Spotlights gives us these capabilities to show this information, along with, obviously, we still have all of the traditional reports within Darwin Cloud. So also, as far as having views, a lot of the broker owners and maybe even managers, we can set up so that they have their spotlights visible on their mobile device. So it's not an actual app. You just simply go to your browser and put in darwin.cloud, and you use your username and password for Darwin, and you can see your spotlights. In this case, we've got our basic spotlights, so I can see some listings and how many agents have listings. This one, I'm looking at some AGCI, closed sides, how many active pendings. So these are just some examples of some of the spotlights that you can view right on your phone. And again, there's also financial spotlights. So we can look at our profit spotlight and see what our gross profit is. This one shows our expenses in red versus our gross profit in blue, and it shows it versus our EBITDA numbers. So just keep in mind that if you're not in the office and you don't have access to a PC, you can jump on Darwin Cloud and see some of the basic information, including spotlights right on your mobile device. Here are also some examples of how different people prefer different formats, right? So, and it may also depend on what they're trying to get out of that information. So this is a profit and loss by month report that many of you might be familiar with and you've seen in Darwin Cloud. Gives a lot of information month by month totals. It gives us different general ledger accounts and those totals. So it gives us really a lot more detail behind it. And then you'll see a spotlight that gives us the exact same, it's the exact same data set, but it gives it in a much more simplified format. It shows how we are doing, how our EBITDA is doing versus our budget numbers that we had put into the system for our spotlights, but just gives you an example of a visual, simple widget in spotlights versus a more detailed type of report. So nice part with Darwin Cloud is you've got access to both. So spotlights, as we had just previously said, also shows patterns and trends more quickly than if you're looking at a, let's say, a profit and loss statement for this past month. You would have to look at the previous month before that and then put some numbers and maybe into a graph and try to start to see trends, and it's going up, it's going down. A lot of work, not easy to do with your traditional printed reports. And so the nice part with spotlights is you can see a lot of these. So this one here shows like pendings by month versus our goal. So the goal is in orange. So we can see we tracked just perfectly with our pendings, just a little bit under in April, under in May, quite a bit, down in June. So we can see how that trend looks. And that's important because it allows you to make some quicker decisions. So then I also have here the new pendings by month versus goal cumulative. I can see how it is versus prior year, and I can also see how it is versus goal. So one of the things that that I want to point out is you want to make sure that you don't have too much information in your spotlights. So we call these widgets, right? So each little box here is a widget. Each graph is a widget. So if I take a look at, like, for instance, on the left-hand side, I've got my recruiting spotlight. I can reduce the number of widgets on this screen. Same thing with the productive spotlight that I'm looking here on the right. I can reduce the number of widgets that I see. And one of the reasons that we talk about this a little bit is because if you have too much information, it can become overwhelming and you end up having information overload. So one of the things that you can actually do is if you've got users like managers or other folks that are going to be looking at spotlights, is get some feedback from them. Try and figure out which widgets are important and which ones are maybe not so important, right? So task yourselves with trying to kind of prune out and limit or delete some of the widgets so that you don't necessarily overwhelm your users. All right. And we want to make sure too that spotlights are focused on what your company wants to be focused on. What are your company priorities? And that way you can create your spotlights to be specific to what your company focus is. And that way, users will tend to look at them more every day because that's where the company is focused. So, great example of that would be we've got a Monday snapshot uh, spotlight that you can customize, and you can make this something that is going to be specific and very clear to what your company priorities are. Okay, and users can look at these every day. So maybe uh, my goal is to really be looking at profit numbers, my gross profit, my AGCI. Those are two areas that we're really focused on. So we can put those widgets onto our Monday snapshot spotlight. Here's another example. Maybe my Monday snapshot is really all about listings taken, pendings written, company dollar pending. So that's our focus right now is we're trying to take more listings, write more pendings. So these are going to be the widgets that I want my managers and anybody else that's looking at these spotlights, including myself as an owner, to be focused on and looking at on a daily basis. So as we talked about, spotlights are customizable, right? So we have about 15, I think, default spotlights. So if you look here, it's under the company tab, and there's an area called Spotlight Setup. And you'll see the spotlight list here on the left. We have 15 of these as kind of out of the box that you can have access to and then basically customize them as you see fit. So, for instance, and each one of these spotlights, so the Monday snapshots spotlight has three groups within it. It's got a profit, it's got production, and it's got recruiting. And then the profit group shows all of these different widgets and graphs that are included on that particular spotlight. And so I may want to remove some of these. I may want to change these just a little bit. And then we also have obviously the spotlight for agents, and that's what your agents see when they log into their portal, which we covered last week, the agent portal in Darwin Cloud. So just an example of how you can have different widgets and how you can customize those Monday snapshot highlights or even your spotlights for agents, cash flow. All of these are completely customizable to what you want to be able to see. So this is the Spotlight Designer. And on the left-hand side, I can see what is currently in this particular spotlight group. All right. And on the right-hand side, I can see what items are available to put into the spotlight, right? Or if I have certain items here in the spotlight that are here that I don't want, I simply take them and I drag and drop it over into the right-hand side, and that will take it off of my screen. So the next time I come in and I look at my spotlights, that would no longer be there. So it's really simple. You can literally drag and drop, and it's actually using a technology called React. And so what's great about that is as you move things around, it will try to reshape and get things looking nice on the screen for you. So that you don't have a bunch of weird open blank areas. But the reason that we wanted to make these customizable is we know, number one, no two companies are ever going to have the same exact priorities or want to look at the same KPIs. Also, there might be different users within your company that have completely different priorities, right? And so we can see and everybody can see what they need to see based on their role within the company and what you as an owner want them to see. This is an example of the agent spotlights. So this is what the agents will see when they log into their Darwin Cloud portal. And this is also what you see when you are in Darwin on your dashboard under Analytics for Agent menu. And you can look up agents from the admin portion of Darwin Cloud and be able to see these graphs and KPIs for whatever agent you want to see at that point. And then you can also add goals for them. You can add goals, they can add goals themselves. And the same is true on any of the spotlights that we've looked at so far. We are able to add your budgets and goals right into the software so that you can have those trend lines and see how you're tracking against your budgets and goals. So one of the ways that we control what people see in the spotlights is through the security menu. And so within the security menu, the spotlight permissions are allowed based on the role that the person has within the company. Okay, so you can see right now I'm looking at my sales manager role. So my sales manager role, I only want them to see the recruiting spotlight, the leaderboard spotlight, the productive spotlight, and the per person productivity spotlight. I don't want them to see my cash flow or my profit or maybe some of these other pendings or rankings. These are the only ones I want them focused on. That's it. Okay. As an owner, I probably have very different spotlights. I probably want to see some of this information that my sales manager sees, but I also want to see things like profit and cash flow and those types of spotlights as well. So I would probably have a longer list of spotlights, but you can limit the spotlights that different roles within your company have just simply through the security settings within Darwin. So let's take a look a little bit at some of the types of spotlights and what those topics can end up looking like. So first of all, let's talk about widgets. We talked a little bit, I've called them widgets. So I just kind of want to go through some of the different widgets that are available in spotlights. So the first widget that we're going to look at is just basically a single number. Okay, so it's not comparing to anything. It's a single number for a fixed date range. So within spotlights, you have the capability to not only filter what spotlight you want to look at, but also what dates. Do I want to look at this year? Do I want to look at last year? Do I want to look at the previous 12 months? If I've got multiple legal entities in the system, I can choose which company I want to take a look at. And I can also look at things specific to an office, right? And again, security permissions will also dictate what certain folks can see. So if a sales manager only has access to one office, they will only see spotlights for that office. So just an FYI. All right. So these are the widgets that are just a single number, okay, for fixed date range. So we've got those types of widgets in the system. And then we've also got a little variation of that, which is the widgets that have two numbers and comparison, right? So I've got this net profit year to date, and it's compared to my prior net profit year to date. I've got closed sides year to date, and here are my closed sides prior year to date. So we've got two numbers comparing a certain date range, and that is a different type of widget that we've got available in the system. We've also got bar graphs. All right. And so the bar graphs, these widgets, you can compare against the prior year as well as budget. And so here you'll see the yellow is our budget. And that is where we can see trends and how we are tracking versus our budget or our goals. And as far as company goes, here is where you can add those particular goals so that you can see how you're doing. If you wanted to add those right in and go against that piece. Otherwise, you can also enter in your regular financial budgets as well, and that will also come over into your financial version of your spotlights. So I can actually see my income versus cost of sales, which is kind of interesting, right? Our commission income versus what we're paying out, and we can see it by month. And I can also see items like how agents are ranking. Okay, that could be a bar graph that we're taking a look at, top 5 closers. So those are some examples of some of the bar graphs that we've got as widgets. There's a bunch of them. And then we also have line graphs. And the line graphs can also track versus the prior year and goal, and also are really good about showing trends, right, within the company. So that's always good. And I can see, for instance, AGCI versus goal, my agent count versus goal, how am I looking versus budget on my EBITDA, and how many listings have I taken by month versus my goal, and I can see cumulatively how that tracks throughout the year. So those are line graphs. Okay? So those are another widget that are available. Another widget we have is data tables. So data tables are going to basically just show, for instance, like this is a agent recruiting to goals. So I can see by office what my agent count is. Did I have a recruiting goal? Okay, how did I do, plus or minus? What was my number last year, and any year over year changes as well. So I can see this is just basically static data, okay, based on the dates that I've put in, but those are going to be pretty simple as far as data tables go. Here's another example of a data table, right? This is my profit per agent spotlight, and I can actually see this is a very interesting and probably sometimes very depressing widget that you might look at. This shows us each agent, okay, based on the filters that we've put into the spotlight. We can see their company dollar, how much has their agent billing been, okay? How much total income have we gotten off that agent? What is our average overhead per agent for our company or office? And in this case, it's the Springfield office that I'm looking at. So I can actually see my overhead. And then here I can actually see what is that agent netting me, and I can see which agents are profitable in the black and which agents are losing me money in the red. Little interesting, and like I said, probably a little scary sometimes, but very interesting. So if you want to take a look at this one, profit per agent is the spotlight, and go to this per agent tab. Quite interesting. We also have data tables that are available in the agent rankings. So our ranking spotlight, you can look at rankings by AGCI. I can look at rankings by company dollar, by volume, by sides, by office. So if I want to rank my offices. So here's just an example. This one's volume. And so I've got all of my agents, and I can see my agent volume rank. This is independent agents, team members, and then team volume. So you've got different categories of agents that you can look at their rankings in different areas, whether it's AGCI, company dollar, volume, or sides. And even more data tables. This is a very interesting. We've got a recruiting spotlight. This recruiting spotlight, this first 100, I believe that this was something that one of our brokers had mentioned to us. They basically had a theory that if an agent didn't get a new listing, write a new contract, or have a closing within the first 100 days of being hired, that they would not make it in the business. So this spotlight was created based off of that. So we can see what agents have been recruited in the last 100 days, and we can see which ones have actually written a contract, maybe had a closing, maybe had a listing. We can also see there's a lot of white space here for a lot of agents that have been with us since January that haven't done anything. And so we're getting up on that point where if they don't do something soon, they're probably not going to make it in the business. It's very interesting concept. So that's our recruiting spotlight, the first 100. All right, so let's take a look at some of the topics that we have. So we'll kind of go through some of the different spotlight topics. And this is going to be our first one that a lot of people always are looking at is that cash flow spotlight. And the cash flow spotlight has several different items within it. So I can look at cash flow. So it might be company dollar, pending company dollar, my monthly overhead, my CMOE. That's basically showing how much pending company dollar versus expenses I have and how many months of expenses I have covered based on my current pending inventory. That's the CMOE. Very interesting information. You'll see on this cash flow spotlight and tab, you can also see pendings. I think they also have the AGC and company dollar graphs on this one as well. But under the cash flow spotlight, you can also look at just pending information. You can also take a look at split percentages. So that's pretty interesting. We'll look at that. And then commission percentage, which is going to show what is the average amount of commission that the agents are charging buyers and sellers. But the split percentage shows us too, what's the average agent split in the company right now? So I can take a look. Our agent split year to date is at this number, and the prior year to date it was at this number. So it's just slightly worse. Company split year to date, again, same thing, just slightly worse than last year. So our agent split last year was this. Our company split last year was this. Agent split last month, so I can see how it's trending even by month. And then I can also take a look on this particular split percentage. I can see my top 5 closers for AGCI. I can also see which agents, how many agents had closings by month. So I can see in the blue, these are agents that had closings. And unfortunately, the yellow are my non-productive agents. Those are agents that had 0 closings. So that's a little scary. But lots of great information. And that's just one, that's just the cash flow one. The
And
next,
on these,
yeah.
oh, sorry to interrupt for a second, but on all of these, you can see that there's the print icon in the upper right-hand corner of most of the widgets, so that if you want to print out any of these graphs or metrics, you can. And many of the graphs sometimes are hard to read when they're smaller, and you can expand them to full screen with the
Yeah.
little double arrows.
Yeah, the expand is really, really nice. So if you wanted to just look at this agents with closings by month by itself, you can just expand and it'll show on the entire screen. Yep.
And
Yep.
then if you want to print the whole group in the upper right-hand corner in the gray box, there's a print
Yeah.
that will print them. The layout will be slightly different, but
Yeah, it's
it's
not
made,
pretty.
formatted for printing. So it basically just puts
Yeah.
them all in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, the print function doesn't have that, I think that React technology that I was telling you about that automatically kind of fits the widgets and makes it look really pretty on the screen. The printing doesn't work quite so well.
Well,
So,
because yeah,
um,
and because your screen width is different than a piece of
yeah.
paper. So
Yeah.
we're optimizing for what you view on the screen, but if you print it out, it just basically stacks all the metrics in the order that you see them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Sorry about that.
Um, oh, that's okay. One of the things, too, we also have a profit spotlight. So this is going to show our EBITDA. We can look at our income, our cost of sales, gross profit. I can look through last month, just expenses. I can also take a look at how are we doing by month and how are we doing versus budget? Were we above? Are we below? So I can see all of that different information to look at profit. And the profit spotlight also has a whole set of widgets for income, gross profit. We've got expenses, and then even breaking it down expenses per office, right? So that can be really valuable information if you're trying to assess, different office expenses and whatnot. So, also under the profit, like I said, this gross profit tab actually shows us our gross profit versus expense, right? Expenses in the red and gross profit in the blue. So I can see how we're looking. Our expenses, unfortunately, are outpacing our gross profit. Just finally in May, it got better. June, it got better. Okay, so kind of a lot, what you tend to expect, and then the EBITDA also trends with that as well. You can see how that's trending against the actuals. Our basics spotlight is really more focused on production, kind of those, what most people think of as basic KPIs, right? So our AGCI, company dollar, closed sides, pendings, listings, all of that type of information. So the year to date spotlight has just a plethora of different information from a basics standpoint. And then you can get down a little bit more detailed into just closings if you wanted to. And it will just give you all of the different information about closings. There is a one of those widgets that's a table that shows just kind of some static information, not necessarily in graphs or anything like that, but more in the table. I can also look at just pending information or even just listing information. So this is the basics spotlight, which is just a really good spot for kind of those production analytics that you want to be taking a look at on a regular basis. And then we also have some spotlights that really give us the ability to do analysis. So one of those spotlights is called the PPP, which is per person productivity. I've heard a lot of PPP, different things. It basically is the same thing. It's how much is the average agent doing, right? From a protection standpoint. So I can look at AGCI. The average agent right now is doing 72,000 in AGCI for the prior 12 months. That's my per person productivity. I can look at company dollar. I can look at volume. I can look at sides. So I can look at all of this different information, and I can also see some of these 2 years ago, last year. So I can just see different time frames within the per person productivity one. And then we also have the capability in that PPP spotlight to look at just independent agents who are not part of a team. You can also look at agents who are team members and then teams as a whole as part of that PPP spotlight. And then the leaderboard spotlight, okay, we've got our leaderboard spotlight right here. We can then look at last month, right? And I can see my top 5 closers in all of these different categories right here on the screen. So I don't, if I'm doing quarterly awards or any of those types of things, things like the leaderboard spotlight, those can be just really, really fantastic and quick, easy ways for you to get to those numbers. I can also look at maybe year to date, right? I can look at my offices and how my offices are doing against each other. So it would have my offices next to each other. I can also look at just agents and also teams. So I can look at a few different things within leaderboard. And like I said, this is really nice for like award purposes. And then also really good for awards is rankings. So I can look at rankings by AGCI. It's just a different way to kind of look at it from the previous spotlight we looked at. But ranking by AGCI, I can look at ranking by company dollar. I can look at ranking by volume, which is what we're looking at here. And I can see agents. I can see independent agents, so not on teams at all, team members, and then the total team volume. And I can also look at sides, or I could look at offices if I've got multiple offices and I want to see how they are ranking versus each other. So those are just some of the different spotlights for analysis. And I think we also have, we looked at this one earlier, but the recruiting spotlight gives a lot of great information. We looked at the first 100 just a little bit ago, but the gain and loss spotlight, this actually kind of walks you through how much AGCI have we gained by hiring the folks year to date, right? So I can look at how much company dollar we've brought in from the people we've hired, how many sides, how much volume. So I can look at some of this different information. I can compare it to, I can look at last month. I can look at prior 12 months. How are we looking? Company dollar hires the prior 12. We can see in comparison, firings versus hirings. So anything in red basically means that it's going the wrong direction. All right. You want it to be in the green. So this green arrow here, we can see our hires outpaced our fires for the prior 12 months for adjusted gross commission income. So we can see all of these different, analyses and take a look at different things. Also, if you've got recruiters in your company, you can actually take a look at how those recruiters are doing and what agents they've brought on and which ones are productive. So you can actually even potentially have like a recruiting award for the recruiter that has brought on the most AGCI or company dollar or whatever it might be from the agents that they have hired throughout the year. So just a lot of great information. The hire fire is also under recruiting. And this also shows you the agent hires year to date and fires. So our net basically is 8 agents, right? Year to date. I can also look at last year. How many hires did we have last year? And then how many fires, right? So we actually had more people fired last year than we hired. That may not be a bad thing. In this particular case, the red might not be bad. So recruiting the Reds, debatable, I guess I would say. So, and then prior 12, also we had less hires than fires. But here's that report I showed you with the recruiters. You can actually see the different recruiters and you can see how many people they've hired and what was the prior AGC that they brought on. Okay, and then you can also take a look at prior volume, sides, and net. And then I can also look at higher fires, which is kind of fun by office. So each office, I know you can't see these, we've blacked them out, but last year, this office, all right, had 58 agents. They hired three, they fired eight. They now have 53 agents. So that's how that reads across there. So it kind of nets it out based on that information. So like this office right here, 50 agents, they've hired 12, fired one. So they're doing pretty well from a recruiting perspective. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that they're also keeping agents that they shouldn't be keeping, but you never know. So, um, but those are a quick, I was gonna say, pretty decent overview of some of the spotlights that are out there. Adam, do we have specific questions that you want me
Yes,
to?
well,
Yeah.
it may get covered tomorrow, but I'm not sure. But we had questions about adding the budget versus the goals for the I think it was the EBITDA dashboard. I have to scroll up. Yeah. Can you show how or where to input the budget for the EBITDA by month profit spotlight? Because when you click on budgets, goals at the top, it doesn't show up there. But I'm not sure if it's under the budget setup and then goes to there from the company tab or
Yeah,
somewhere else.
so all right. So yeah, so like add goals. So we've got all of these are going to be the ones that you can add straight from here, but the other items that we would be looking at would actually be done in the company tab under budgets. And you can look at all of these different types of things. So there are ways to import your budgets into Darwin. So there's if you don't want to come in here and let's say here's my advertising costs, right? So I've got a certain company, a certain office and year, and then I have to enter in all of that information. A lot of our companies use this import tool, and you can actually download the template for the budget. And I'm going to open it. This is the template. that you can see Office ID and you can input the information and upload those budgets. And I think, Deanne, I know we've got a few folks that have helped in support sometimes when folks are importing budgets. Is that something that we have certain people specific, I'm guessing, to helping do that?
I bel I believe so. Yes, I can.
Yeah. Well, I know some of the accounting team. I know Barbara used to do it, but she's on to bigger and better things. So,
Mhm.
so I know that we've got folks that can help with that. But yeah, all of the different types of budgets, whether it's financial, production,
Yeah.
you'll see there's yeah, you could spend a lot of
Yeah.
time in here for
Yeah.
sure.
James is saying that that's not showing on that particular spotlight. So I'll check with the team and the programming and see why that's not showing. We had one question that I answered in the chat, but if you go to Spotlight Setup again, please.
Uh-huh.
The order of the drop downs and the tab are based on the order they are in the Spotlight list, and you can just click and drag those into whatever order you want,
Uh-huh.
so that the drop down will appear in the order that the Spotlight lists are in. So,
Hmm. Yep.
so it's not
So I just moved.
alphabetical, it's not numeric, it's whatever
Nope.
order you want.
You got it.
That was one of the things.
Hmm.
Um, And then somebody just asked a question about finding a monthly total monthly closings versus last month. So I don't know if you want to show the how to add a chart in a group and search for monthly, and maybe we can find that item.
Yeah, let me think here real quick. Um, so let's look at what do they want to look at monthly closings
Closing
this month versus
versus,
last month?
yep,
Okay. So
close size
volume,
by month
sides,
versus
volume.
goal. That
Well, that would show it. Um, Although we've got that here. Doesn't it show monthly?
but
Are they
versus
looking
last
at
month. I think, yeah, they're looking for, oh, prior month,
oh
yeah.
versus last month? Okay.
But that closed sides should show that, right? Because it's showing sides and then prior month,
Yeah.
prior
Yeah. I mean, so
year.
if I just go to spotlights, I'm gonna go to basics,
Is that
close.
what you're looking for, Marianne? You can unmute if you want to jump
I
in.
mean, we can look if there's an actual, but if we look at like closed sides, I can see February, um, I had 952 sides,
Versus
right?
the prior February, yeah.
Prior year was 943. But then I can look at March and I had 1492. So 14 versus 952. I mean, it gives you the data. It just if she's wanting something like one of these, we could take a look. It would have to be, I don't think we have something that shows versus previous month except on the different graphs that then show the trends month by month.
All right, two more quick things. One was
Uh-huh.
something from me. Um, when thinking
Yeah.
about the spotlights, for because I know a lot of people on here may be admins or managers. Think
Mm-hmm.
about the reports that your owner asks you for every week, every month, every quarter. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you can put that into a spotlight, then you can say, well, just open up your phone and go look at it, or open
Mm-hmm.
up your computer and go look at it. So you, or if they don't do that, you can open up your
Right.
spotlight and look at it for them and print it out so that you
Mhm.
already have all the numbers for them that they care
Mhm.
about. So it's
Well, and
super customizable to get you the numbers you want
yeah.
for the people that you want.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really nice about it is just like you said is you can this is just we have a list of different spotlights that are kind of out of the box, like we said, and then you
Yeah.
can, tweak them, change them, whatever you want. But like this Monday snapshot, that's a really great example of one that was just added, and then they put in certain items, and then those were the items that they added in. Those are the widgets they added in. So you can create new spotlights, you can have whatever groupings you want, and then you can put whatever widgets and just search for those widgets. So tomorrow, I think, is really going to be a little bit more focused on kind of workshopping that with you guys so you can see how you can do that. And even have you guys like kind of go along in your computers to kind of try and help set up those spotlights and just see how simple they are to customize. So
Yes, and then we had Brian asking the million-dollar question. What if
uh-oh.
there is a widget that I want that doesn't exist so far?
Yeah. Well, and that happens. A lot, maybe not most, but a lot of the widgets that are here are actually widgets that have been requested by clients that Mark said, that's a great idea. Don't know why we hadn't thought of it. So we had two even from, I think, just last week that we were taking a look at. One, I think, was next month's pendings, to kind of see, as you get towards the end of the month, you kind of lose sight. You're looking at all your this month. But it'd be nice to kind of know next month's pendings, like what are we looking at? How are we tracking as you get closer? So that was a great idea last week. And then the other one was to be able to track referral sources and agent generated versus office generated business.
Yeah, we had
And
somebody asking about that too
yeah,
today.
being able to track that, not, by agent and by office and even potentially by company. So you could see what your sources are. We've got reports that give that information. So the data's here. So I think the main thing is if we have the data, if we can run a report in Darwin for it currently, then what I would suggest is that you reach out and create a support ticket asking. It will be considered what we call an enhancement request. And the senior management team meets quarterly to go through enhancement requests and take a look and prioritize those things. And then some of it also has to do with how quick and easy they are or how difficult they are. But uh, at least it gets it in the queue to get developed. Okay.
And I just popped the link in to register for tomorrow's webinar.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to put in the link to um, the regular webinars as well.
Yeah, so just so y'all know, in case you don't know, accounttech.com, our website, go to this everything about cloud, and you will actually see a list of all of the webinars that we've got. Today was company spotlights. Next week, we're going to talk about how to do multiple legal entities in one system. That could be referral companies, title, mortgage, all sorts of different options. So if you've got multiple legal entities, we can really show you how to take advantage of that because that is something that we stand alone versus our competition in being able to do multiple legal entity accounting all in one system and not have multiple licenses and all of that good stuff. And then past webinars. So soon as the webinar from today is completed and we've got it up and running, it will be on the past new feature webinar page. So you can see the previous webinars that we had. And as they happen, we'll put those links there. And then finally, also on the Cloud Now page, we've got the Q&A sessions, and you can click on the register to register for it, and it'll register for each week, or you can just join it live. And that's every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and hope that everything is going good for the rest of your week. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, especially if you want to get some of your spotlights set up. Please make sure that you come and join us and we'll walk through and be able to do that with you. And other than that, thanks for coming and we'll see you on the next webinar.